All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
The microphone's on the camera.
Oh, cool. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so maybe we'll face this way. Yeah, so usually we have the microphone above us to get better sound. So the sound might be a little off on this one, but
whatever.
I have got all my stuff packed up and I'm not in the mood to unpack it, so
no,
I apologize. So something that I have talked with others about being a good idea is weekly check-ins. So Jordan Peterson talks about like the bare minimums.
Oh, right, like 90 minutes. And
yeah, exactly. So the bare minimums for a successful relationship would be at least one date night a week. And it doesn't have to be, to my understanding, it doesn't have to be going out. It can be, I think it's just focused time on each other.
Yeah, intentional time.
Designated time. And then for at least 90 minutes a week, going over the week, going over the plans for the next week.
How's life going? How the kids doing? All that stuff.
Touching base, getting on the same page.
Absolutely.
So one date night for fun, and then 90 minutes of serious talk.
Yep.
And then you were just saying that you have already been doing this.
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
So this idea came up by the wonderful girlfriend. She says I mentioned it, but I genuinely don't remember doing that. So I just give her the credit for it. But we had the idea of once a week making intentional time to check in. And so what that looks like for us is essentially it's just a dedicated time to basically not just none of the functional stuff. That all just takes place during the week. Like the 90 minutes of required stuff takes place within the week. Like we do that. How's it going? What'd you do today? How are you doing? All that crap happens. Not that it's crap. Just all of that takes place normally. So this is not for that. This is intentional time for intentional conversation. So really what it's looking at is, are there any problems this week? Have I done anything that's offended you this week? Do I have anything that I feel like I need to confess to you because I have it weighing on me? Or do I just have any questions or concerns that have popped up? Like it's a time to just actually go, hey, we're setting this apart from the rest of the schedule. We're intentionally doing this to make sure, is there anything you have? Is there anything I have? Let's meet and let's discuss this. I think the reason this is useful and where it came from was that, you ever heard the phrase, if everything's important, nothing's important?
So my neighbor just walked by and we've got the window open. She's looking up like, what these crazies doing?
Great. Learn something.
If everything's, I don't think so, but
okay.
But I get where you're going.
But it checks, right? Like if all the things are important, then nothing's important. So take that to meaningful conversation. If we can talk about something anytime, you're never going to talk about anything. There's not time for it. Like, yes, if something's heated, likely what that's going to do is it's going to result in you, when you have a high state of emotion, that's when you're going to want to respond to something. And then when your emotions have died down, you're not really going to want to bring that touchy thing back up. You're not really going to want to dive back into that space. This is that intentional time. And when you're both coming into it going, I know this is a time where it's going to be maybe uncomfortable, maybe diving into things that we don't really want to, but I'm here for it, I'm showing up for it, and I'm willing to jump in.
Okay.
Extremely useful. But one more thing. Oh, it's going to make me burp a lot. The caveat that we do with this, again, great idea by Morgan, was before we start this, we have to start with something that we're grateful for the other person within the week. Now, why do we do that? Because we're starting off in a place where, hey, I like this person. I actually like you. I'm sitting here. You're a good person. Here's what I actually like about you. Right? So it's not I'm coming here to fight you. I'm not putting you as my adversary. We're coming here to resolve things. We're making space to fix anything. We're making space to grow and actually intentionally do something. So how do we start that? By a sense of, I appreciate this of you. Thank you for doing this. I noticed you were doing these things and it really was meaningful to me. Anything, literally anything, gets your heart in a posture where it's like, I like this person. I want to do life with this person. I want to resolve things. And like for us, we have a scheduled time. I don't want to do it at night because I don't want to go to bed stressed out if we talk about something seriously meaningful. So we have a day that we picked. I don't like doing it at night. So anytime before XYZ time. And if we can't do that, like today is the day we're supposed to do that. She's traveling. I'm busy. Actively reschedule for the next day. So tomorrow we'll sit down and we'll do this. It's like, we do not miss this. It is not a, you want to. No, we're going to. We're both choosing to do it. So, and I found that to be the single most impactful thing in any relationship I've ever had.
How long have you guys been doing this?
What is today? The 27th? It's about 2 months.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's once weekly.
Yep.
And you've been doing it for about 2 months.
Yes.
So this will be about your 9th session coming up or so.
Yeah.
Okay. And even after 9 sessions, you think it's the most impactful thing you've done in a relationship.
Yeah. It's like covering so much ground. All these topics that we are talking about are things that could easily be passed over or just never really brought up because like, it's not that important right now. Or if they are brought up, they're brought up in like high emotional state. It's like, I don't want that. I want to do this when we're both willing to do this. Not when I'm pissed off or you're pissed off. And then one of us is going to get real defensive out of the gate. Like, whoa, you're coming at me hot.
Yeah.
It's like, no. We're both relatively neutral and we understand we're going to dig into stuff. Great. Go.
Yeah, we agreed to have a weekly strengthening session. Obviously, it would probably be a good idea if both parties wanted to do it.
Right.
You know.
Actually, that's another good point. So I told a bunch of people this. And they're like, I'm going to start doing this. I was like, great. I'm happy for you. And then one of them, it was just on Thursday, he goes, yeah, I'm going to do it this weekend. I was like, okay, now does your wife know you're going to do it this weekend? It's like, well, I mean, I'm just going to do it. I was like, see, there's a problem. Because you're just coming into it and you're going to start punching out of the gate and be like, I got these problems. Listen here. It's like, yeah, it's not going to do what you want it to do. So it is that, like, you both got to be willing to do it. You got to discuss that, hey, we're going to do this. And both be like, yes.
What do you think, let's say if that's too intense for a couple, what do you think an alternative version of that would be? So you want the weekly strengthening session, but maybe, let's say, just talking face to face about problems, too intense for some people.
Sure.
Gets their emotions riled. They feel like they're being attacked, even if it's that large but in the middle. I love these things about you. Thank you for doing these things. But yeah, and maybe I'm sure there's, mathematically speaking, there's got to be people out there who would not be able to do this, would not be okay with this.
Sure.
So what would be a strengthening session light?
That's a really good question. Yeah, because like the way I look at it is like just bull in a china shop. Let's go. Let's smash this.
That's how I operate. And it's not based on other human beings' reactions. It's not received well.
Sure.
For me, like, whether it be in my family, my friends, work, relationships, I want to get it done now. Like, I don't care how high the emotions are. I don't care how intense it is. You know, like, I know if I'm someone I don't care about, someone I'm not going to, will not be in my life long term. I don't care. These things don't matter to me.
Right.
I'm not going to have a very large emotional response to anything they really do. You know, but my family, my friends, maybe some coworkers, my job at hand, or my job as a whole, someone I'm in a relationship with. These are things that I'm doing this job or hanging out with these people because that's what I want. You know, we're not 22 where you
just
have
picking random people.
Yeah, it's at that age. For a lot of us, I think it's quantity over quality. But then now you get to your 30s, and obviously everyone above us, you know, it's like quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
So it's like if I'm voicing concerns to you, it's because I've chosen you to be in that quality, you know, that group of quality. So for me, yeah, it's because of that. It's like, well, I clearly care about you, you know, because you're in that circle, and I'm guessing if we're on the same page here, if we're having this discussion, that I must be close to you, you know, otherwise you wouldn't be investing the time and energy.
Right.
So for me, yeah, I don't care how intense it gets, because I know it's like, well, I love you, you love me, you know, like my siblings, like,
that was me.
That must be you. Okay.
Yeah.
I do not know the last time I had any dispute with one of my siblings. But for example, if let's say one of my brothers and I were to get into a heated dispute right now, like it would be intense, but neither of us would be worried about anything bad happening because we know each other. We trust each other. We love each other, you know, but at the same time, it would get very intense. And so I'm the same way, where I want to get it done now. Yes. I don't like it lingering. Right. I don't want it there tomorrow.
Right.
I don't want it there in an hour from now.
Right.
Like, can we just get it done now? And it's like, if we need to be a star that just burns itself away with massive intensity, so be it. I don't care.
Right.
You know, I don't care. But I know there's a lot of people that do care.
Right.
They want bite-sized pieces over a long extended period of time. And there's no right or wrong. It's just, that's how I operate. That's how they operate.
Right.
You know, and I know based on my intensity and watching other human beings' reactions around me, that there's a lot of people that don't like that high intensity.
That's fair.
You know? So I guess that's what we're talking about. People that don't like that high intensity.
And so as you were talking, I was thinking about your original question of what's the light version of that look like? I guess let me run some ideas by you and see if this changes, I guess, the perspective in question.
Okay.
So I fully get where you're coming from with the needing to like bowl through stuff, like when it happens. It's not a matter of like you said, I don't want to wait an hour with this. I just want to get it out of the way. Well, doing this is that waiting. Right? So it takes you away from, now in every relationship, I'm not saying every single thing needs to be paused until you get to we'll do it at the weekly. It's like, no, you got to deal with stuff. Obviously, that's a built-in, that's an understood. This is just like, okay, that kind of bugged me, and I'm going to think about if that's worthwhile, if I should either let that go because this actually just needs to be let go, or if, no, I'm going to put that away in my filing cabinet, and it's going to sit there forever. And if I don't deal with it, it'll just turn into resentment. Yeah. So what does that look like? And that would typically trigger you to want to do the bull in the china shop, get it done. Like, let's just smash through this and be done with it. So the light version, I hesitate with the light version because what I think is, if you're both on the same page, if you're both understanding, okay, at this point in time, in this juncture, we're going to discuss these things. You're both entering with that understanding. It's not like one person's hot and one person's defensive. It's, we both know we're walking in. And we're here to essentially resolve issues. So one thing I heard Jordan Peterson talk about was, and it wasn't even his idea, I think it was a Nietzsche idea, but 80% of the conflict that people have is not related to the issues, not related to the actual problem. 80% of it is because the people are misaligned. Like, you're talking about this and this person's talking about this. You're not talking about this. Yes. 80% of the time.
Yes.
So what the intentionality of this is fuck that 80%. We're jumping right into the 20%. We both know we're here to discuss this. We both know what we're doing is just problem solving, resolving, discussing, opening, understanding. Like, all of that is built in. So you're walking in with a sense of grace to be like, hey, whatever you're going to say to me, I'm here to hear it. I'm not here to fight you on it. I'm just here to hear it. And I'm not agitated. I'm not stressed out. I may have things that are kind of bugging me, but I'm not bringing them with the initial weight that I originally had. So yeah, I get that. Like, some people are not going to want to face it head on, and that's fair. This probably, like, I mentioned this to, I won't mention who, but I mentioned this to someone, and they looked at me and goes, "That's terrifying." I was like, "Really?" Because it's the most exciting thing in the world to me, like, to actually make space for this. But I do understand that it can be really intimidating to sit down and actually have meaningful conversation. You're opening yourself up. It goes to vulnerability. It goes to that vulnerable state. Either you're being vulnerable or you're asking someone to be vulnerable in heated conversations, tentatively. Or just really, honestly, more than most of them have not been like, "Hey, I have a problem with this." It's been more, "Hey, here's this vulnerable thing that I actually just need to share with you because it's going to be a problem and I want it out there." And as we discussed before, vulnerability does one of two things. It hurts you or it helps you. That's what somebody can do with it. You hand it to them, they take it, or they smash it. They nurture it, or they destroy it. In this space, you're walking in with the understanding that you're both here to nurture whatever it is you're throwing out there. Right? So while it is extremely intimidating, and like, it's terrifying for people who have not experienced like openness, vulnerability, sharing that, and reciprocating goodness from it, just getting that sense of, hey, we're on the same team, we're aiming at the same goal, and we want to resolve these things. We're not going to fight about the alignment stuff. We're aligned right now. So let's just talk about whatever we have right now. So I know that didn't answer your question because I don't know. I guess, do you have thoughts on what a light version would look like?
I do.
Yeah, hit me with it.
And yeah, I think that's all really good. I think you can take that, the central nervous system of that idea, and you can just change up the muscular skeletal structure.
Whatever it looks like for you.
So some people, I think, have a hard time talking about problems face to face.
Yes.
So you could do a writing thing.
Oh, that's a great. Yes, we've already actually done exactly that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. I know there's some people who, if they talk, they get too emotional, and so they like to write things down.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's some couples that they have. It was a book I was reading, some psychologist, and they were talking about it was a podcast I was listening to, some psychologist, and they had a couple in therapy that when they had problems, they'd like get in a fight and distance themselves, and they would never talk about the problem. But when one of them was ready and over it, they would come back and make like a gesture of affection, and then they would just carry on with life, and like that was their way of resolving problems. And that just worked for them. Yeah.
That's intriguing.
Yeah. No, this was a couple who had been married a very, very long time.
Sure. It's just part of their process.
Yeah, probably. I think they might have been like in their retirement age.
Sure.
So you've got you and I wanting to get right into it.
Resolve.
You've got couples who don't even talk about it. And so then that would lead us to believe there has to be a middle ground.
Sure.
And that might look something like not wanting to do face-to-face. Probably do a writing.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
If you're a techie, maybe a PowerPoint.
All right, here's my 5-point reason why you suck.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that at some point. I'm going to make I'll be like, hold on, sit down for 1 second. Let me just walk you through this PowerPoint. I like that.
That'd be good. Other versions, though, off the top of my head, I can't think of how else you would do that.
Yeah, and honestly, that's where like couples therapy and things like that come into play, because oftentimes people don't know how to do these things. It's not like we're all wizards of a relationship that we fully understand how to handle stuff. It's like, admit your ignorance, understand you don't know what to do, and then go talk to somebody who does. Because what are you going to do if you're just bashing your head up against the wall and it's not going anywhere? It's like, do you want this solved or do you not want it solved? Well, then have a little humility, accept that you are ignorant and don't know, and step in where somebody does know. And maybe that's not a therapist. Maybe that's just like some really good relationship around you and just reaching out for help. Like, that's a hard thing to do.
A third party.
Yeah.
There's few things more frustrating than being in a heightened emotional situation with someone who communicates very differently from you. Has a very different temperament than you. I mean, I'm sure all of us have been in a relationship or have that one friend or in a relationship right now with someone who just communicates so differently. Someone who's very avoidant, someone who's very aggressive. And just, I think the thing you have to realize is, and it's hard because you have to have a level of trust. Yeah. It's so hard, especially like when you've been
burned enough.
When you've been burned good enough or enough, it's hard to, it's really hard to hang on, especially if the signs are indicating the same.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, yep, I was right.
I knew it.
Yeah, my bad mind was right. I think that you just have to just trust that, no, I think they want what's best. I think this is what they want. Mm-hmm. I think, I don't think my brother would do that to me. I don't think my wife or my spouse would do that to me. I think it's trust really comes down to. But at the same time, trust is earned. And so by someone showing up and doing these things that you're saying, that shows that they care. Mm-hmm.
You really develop your connection.
Yeah. So I think, like, let's say we're talking about mainly relationships here. Yep. So you have two people, even if the face-to-face doesn't work,
right?
If they can come up with an alternative, like, hey, I love this idea, but this face-to-face isn't going to work for me. What's an alternative method? Hey, I could handle this alternative method though. Would you be willing to try that?
Yep.
And so I think that's a good clear sign too, that if you have a partner who's coming forward and saying, hey, how about this? How about this? That's a really good indication that they're in this. They're willing to put their pride aside. They're willing to become vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah, and I love the highlight of trust, because how do you grow trust? It doesn't exist, first off. There are people that are way more trusting and they'll just throw their trust out to anyone. There's some people that are like guarded and will not hand out trust to anyone. There's probably reasons within their story why that's true. But how do you develop and start growing trust? The first thing you have to do is actually trust someone. And I know that's really counterintuitive and stupid, but it doesn't just show up upon you. You have to hand it out. So in that space where it's like, oh, I want to trust this person more, but I'm hesitant because X, Y, Z. It's like, okay, do I think they have good intentions for me? Do I think they're willing to do this? I may have hesitations here, but I'm going to trust them with this. I'm going to trust that they're going to follow through with this. I'm going to choose to trust that they'll actually listen when I say blah, blah, blah. And maybe that's part of the discussion with somebody. It's like, hey, maybe I have a hard time trusting you. Or maybe that's a part that's really difficult. But I want you to understand that I'm going to extend this to you. So please do not diminish it or, hurt or damage it in any way. Because trust is probably an extension of vulnerability. Because you're letting yourself open to let that person in. So the only way to actually do that is to do it. It doesn't just happen upon you. It takes that active effort to do so.
Yeah. I would say there are the anomalies of really abrupt earnings of trust. Mm. You're in a very intense situation.
Sure.
And this person did something that made you realize, whoa, they did not have to do that. They put me first. They saved my life, whatever, something like that. And that's like, you can almost say, I don't know what the correct term for it would be, but let's just say spontaneous trust.
Sure.
But I'm guessing that's kind of an anomaly.
Sure. Yeah.
So the bulk of it would be what you're describing.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a good example because we do that often. We do trust people with that level of trust and maybe even diminishing the returns of that quite often when we meet people. We tend to default. A majority. Some people absolutely do not, and I fully get that. But a majority of us will default to, okay, this person's helping out. I'll trust them with a little bit. But again, it goes to that sense where I will trust them with this much. Or maybe somebody does something great, totally unexpected, and they've earned a significant amount. That's all they get until you give them more and more and more. It's a thing that you dish out. They can do things to earn it, but you essentially, nobody can do anything and grab trust from you. They can do things that show you it's worthwhile to give them trust, but you still have to give it to them.
So in order to get the interest, you have to invest.
Yeah, basically. And it may not return because that person might not be willing to trust you for whatever reason. But if you want it, that's how you step in. From the opposite side, if you're trying to receive trust, show that you are trustworthy in some shape. And then maybe physically ask for it too. Because there could be an aspect where the person doesn't even realize that they're unwilling to trust things. And then just say, hey, just trust me on this. I know you may have whatever XYZ thing you think is going to take place. Just trust that I won't do that. Or trust that I will do this. Whatever it is, ask for it. Because then it'll open the door for them to be able to actually hand it out.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. What do you think? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Love you too, man.